have determined the 8 drivers that will battle it out for the Coors Light Truck Series Championship, the 12 drivers that will battle it out for the Pizza X Series Championship, and we cap off our race weekend from Hillside Raceway with today's running of the Hersheys Cup Series, as we are going to determine the 16 drivers that will battle it out for the playoffs in the 7th season of Hersheys Cup Series competition. There are a number of drivers that come into this race already locked in, whether it be locked in via a win, multiple wins, or even where they're positioned in the point standings coming into this race. But there's a lot of question marks on other drivers down near the bottom of the grid as to whether they're going to make it in or not. And you can see down on the bottom right of your screen the drivers that come into this race currently in playoff positions, in the 16 playoff positions. You've got Kyle Mathews, John Art with 2 wins. They're already basically locked into the playoffs, but you go down there and you see Joseph Srigley, Scott Roush. Right now, they're basically in at this point. I think they have a good chance of making it points-wise. Johnny Gardner as well, but then you get to Seth Cole in 15th, Keith Batson in 16th. That's where the big battle points-wise is going to take place here today. I'm going to take just a little opportunity here to let you guys know who can get into the playoffs points-wise here as we have a little bit of time before the command. So where the big battle is going to take place is from 15th on down. Seth Cole, Keith Batson, right now they are currently in playoff spots, but Keith Batson is in that critical 16th position. You look at drivers underneath him in the standings that don't have a win. K Shearer right behind Keith Batson by 1 point. Kyle Keith 4 points back. Joshua Osborne 19 points back. 30 points back is former champion Chris Dodd. Holly Davis, the rookie, 34 points back. Dylan Poteet 35 points back. D Shears 36 points back. And the last driver that comes into this race mathematically eligible to get himself into the playoffs via points would be Charles Sanford. He is 41 points back. Now, those drivers that I just mentioned, they could all easily make their way into the playoffs with a win, as could drivers Emmanuel Hartnett, Trent Dunham, Chris Dollerton, Benny Watson, Daniel Voyles, Daniel Gilbert, Benjamin Miles, James McCloud, Zachary Fitzwater, R Reynolds, Sean Gallighan. All these drivers still mathematically eligible to get a win and get into the top 30 in points. You can also add Brandon Gonzales to that list. And then a little bit of the long shots would include Shane Lake, Jordan Lopez, and Cody Llamas. But there is a slight chance with a win they could accumulate enough points to get up into the top 30 in the point standings. We're also going to keep an eye on the 14 of Dallas McIntosh, because you see he's not on the grid. He is currently 39th in the point standings. He's got to get himself into the top 30 in points in this race, and he's got to make up roughly about 35 points today to do it. Let's go get that command.
Drivers, start your engines!
So command is given. We'll give you your top 10 overall in the point standings, though I'm not really sure they're going to have much bearing on this race. Kyle Mathews, the points leader, 4 points in hand over J Baskinger. Joseph Srigley in 3rd, John Art 4th, Cody Smart in 5th. Then it's Scott Roush, Dylan Young, Levi McIntyre, Johnny Gardner, and J Cittadino. That is your top 10. J Bryant lines up on the pole here. Probably one of the few drivers that comes into this race that cannot get into the playoffs with a win, but trying to make history here, trying to complete the sweep for Young Motorsports, who has had 3 of their drivers, Cody Smart, Dylan Young, and Levi McIntyre, all go to victory lane. And right now, it looks like all 3 of those Young Motorsports Fords will be representing in the playoffs. We'll try and keep you abreast of everything that takes place points-wise and playoff-wise here. Time to go racing. 60 laps at Hillside. Let's roll. And I just got a phone call that I'm going to have to take. Bear with me. Apologies for that. That was a phone call I needed to take, as race lead is now exchanged. Chris Dodd's going to go to the point, and here comes last week's winner from Watkins Glen. Cole Baker going to move into the picture. Baker, with that win last week, put himself into the playoff grid. Comes into this race 26th in points, though, so he needs a good run to keep himself in the top 30 in the points for that win to count towards a spot in the playoffs. Emmanuel Hartnett now looking for 2nd place. Remember, he's one of those drivers that with a win, he could lock himself up a spot in the playoffs. Chris Dodd trying to battle him for 2nd place here. 60 laps of racing, as you can clearly see, but we're going to see something here today that we haven't seen all weekend long, and that is these drivers have to come to pit road at least twice. The fuel window about the same, roughly 28 to 33 laps, though they kind of go more towards the maximum of 28 laps. We've seen both our truck race and our Pizza X Series races go green from start to finish, and we've seen that green flag pit stop come into play. Well, we're going to see 2 green flag pit stops possibly come into play here if they can keep it together for the entirety of this race. As Chris Dodd trying to hold off teammate K Shearer here. Chris Dodd comes into this race 18th in the point standings. K Shearer 13th in points. Both drivers mathematically eligible to race their way into the playoffs via points. K Shearer is only 1 point back from 16th in the standings. Keith Batson, Chris Dodd 30 points back. And he's trying to get around Cole Baker here, try and get a bonus point for a lap led. I know he made a move on J Bryant for the race lead, but I don't think he led that lap. I think Baker got around him before the start-finish line, so he's going to try and make a move here for the position. I think I mentioned this either last week or the week before, but K Shearer, since being in a full-time ride here in the Hersheys Cup Series, has made the chase for the championship every year since his rookie season. If he doesn't race his way into the playoffs here, maybe it'll be the first time as a chartered driver that K Shearer would not be in the playoffs. Look at these top three Chevrolets, nose to tail: Baker, Dodd, and Hartnett. Chris Dodd's going to make the move to the inside. Hartnett going to follow in line. Chris Dodd, former champion in his final season. I'm noticing the Young Motorsports Fords are back up here in force. We've got McIntyre, Dylan Young, J Bryant all clumped together in 5th through 7th, as maybe a little bit of help there from Emmanuel Hartnett will put the Lay's Sour Cream and Onion Potato Chips Chevy out in front. And now Hartnett going to look to the inside. Emmanuel Hartnett, closest he got to victory lane this season, that second place run at Dover. Coming up just short to John Arndt. 3 wide behind him for second. K Shearer on the bottom. Cole Baker in the middle. Chris Dodd way up top side. Now I mentioned that there were a number of drivers coming into this race that already were basically locked into the playoffs as soon as they took the green flag. Kyle Mathews, John Arndt, obviously 2 of them, both of them top 5 in the point standings with 2 wins. No way mathematically they could fall outside the top 30. Then a couple of drivers that you can see there on that playoff grid that have a 1 win beside their name also came into this race pretty much mathematically eligible of making it in, since they were so far ahead of the cut line. Those drivers would include J Baskinger, Cody Smart, Dylan Young, Levi McIntyre, J Cittadino, and quite possibly also Jessica Shelton and Tim Walch. The drivers that really have to be careful here today: Anthony McCrury, he's 23rd in the point standings coming into this race, and he is a meager 13 points ahead of the 30th in the standings cut line. And then, of course, we already mentioned Cole Baker. He's 26th in points, and he's only 11 points ahead of the cut line coming into this race. But right now out in front, so he's getting some very valuable bonus points for leading a lap and maybe potentially leading the most laps. We'll have to wait and see if that is going to indeed be the case. Let's follow this battle for second, because that's where the best battling is going on right now. Levi McIntyre on the inside of Emmanuel Hartnett. He'll take that spot. McIntyre would love to be able to head into the playoffs tied with Kyle Mathews and John Arndt as the #1 seed in the playoffs. A couple of other drivers back here that also are locked in the playoffs would love to get another victory. J Cittadino, our winner from Arizona. 72. J Cittadino going to make the playoffs for the first time in his Hersheys Cup Series career, and our points leader's not too far back there. Kyle Mathews, that Kings Island Chevrolet. Like I said, the best season I've ever seen him have, minus his championship season back in season 3. Chris Dodd right behind him there in the 8. J Bryant, R Reynolds, Dougie Shears there as well. And then how about another driver having a career year, trying to crack the top 10? It's Cody Smart in the 12. Joshua Osborne there in the 27. Osborne comes into this race 19 points behind that 16th in the standings cut line. Driver he's got to get ahead of right now would be the 80 of K Shearer, although Osborne maybe could be able to bypass Seth Cole in the point standings. Seth Cole back to Joshua Osborne. The separation of points would be 24 points. find out where those two drivers are currently running. Seth Cole and Keith Batson, who came into this race 15th and 16th in our playoff grid. As we're getting some low frames there, apologize for that. A little bit of a spike. Seth Cole back right now in the 32nd position, and Keith Batson right there with him. Running 31st and 32nd right now. But there are a number of drivers trying to run them down that are ahead of them. Kyle Keith just a little ways ahead of these two. And he's trying to bypass Keith Batson, who they were both separated by 4 points coming into this race. Let's see where the others are. There's Scott Roush. Roush 6th overall in the points. He's pretty much a shoe-in to make it into the playoff. There's Holly Davis, 34 points back from Keith Batson coming into this race. Gardner's basically locked in, 41 points back. Charles Sanford's up in 16th. Daniel Voyles in the 26th. He basically needs to win to get in. And pit stops have begun. Completion of lap 25, Hartnett is in, JT Bryant is in, and this is going to be the pit stop that'll set us up for our second pit stop, and this is definitely going to be interesting as this top three now all together. Baker, McIntyre, and Cittadino. Baker's going to give up the lead to come to pit road, turn the lead over to the Captain America Marvel Ford of Levi McIntyre. Probably see McIntyre come in next time by. So with them coming to pit road around lap 25 to 27, means we'll probably see these drivers hitting pit road for the second pit stop somewhere between laps 52 to 54, somewhere within the 6 to 8 laps to go range. R Reynolds, who last year made history, the only rookie ever to make it into the Final Four to compete for the championship in the Hersheys Cup Series. Comes into this race mired down 34th in points, needs a win to get into the playoffs, and now he'll come to pit road. He's the last driver that needs to hit pit lane. Now when the pit stops began, Cole Baker was the leader. We'll see if he indeed cycles around as the leader. Come off pit road here. So we can find that 18. The 80. There's Gardner. There's Cittadino. Cittadino, I think, came in the same lap that Baker did. And there's Baker. I think Baker did get out ahead of McIntyre, so it looks like he will hold on to the race lead, at least for the moment. We're nearing the halfway point of this race. Cole Baker trying to win his second race in a row. This is actually a battle for the lead right here, I believe, between Baker and Reynolds, and Baker at the line will get it. So Reynolds will cycle into second. McIntyre trying to take the spot. He's in third. Dougie Shears is now fourth. Fifth, John Cittadino. Sixth is K Shearer. Seventh is Dylan Young. Eighth, Emmanuel Hartnett. Ninth is Kyle Mathews, including the top 10 is Chris Dodd. 11th is Joshua Osborne. 12th is Cody Smart. Charles Sanford must have had a really good pit stop. He's up to 13th. Johnny Gardner there in 14th. And Trent Dunham moving by there. He'll get 14th place to move Gardner back to 15th. James McCloud now 16th. Anthony McCrury in 17th. Much better than where he was running when the pit stops began. This was a driver that needed to run well to keep in the top 30 in points. He's 17th, just ahead of pole sitter JT Bryant, who is 18th. 19th place now under contest. Looks like Joseph Srigley will get it, and that will move Holly Davis back to 20th. Keith Batson, after the pit stops, up in 23rd. And Seth Cole is back in 33rd place. So right now, Seth Cole in danger of falling out of the playoff grid. And based on the running order right now that I'm visibly seeing, as we just had a lead change, Levi McIntyre got around. If Seth Cole is out, I would believe K Shearer would move in, displacing the 98 from the playoff grid. I believe Keith Batson's running ahead of Kyle Keith right now, so Kyle Keith is not in any way a factor for Keith Batson, but there are a couple of drivers that are up here towards the front that Keith Batson now needs to hope to not find victory lane. And the one that I'm particularly looking at is the 07 of J Shears in 4th place. Comes into this race 21st in points. And while he's 36 points behind Keith Batson in the standings, that doesn't mean anything. If he goes to victory lane, J Shears immediately leapfrogs Keith Batson for a spot in the playoff grid. This is maybe the most dominant looking, at least out in front, that we've seen out of Levi McIntyre. Remember his win back at Phoenix was him being able to stay out and make it on fuel. He wasn't really in the lead for a good portion of that Phoenix race. So nice to see Levi McIntyre with a strong run. And you think back to Levi McIntyre's career in the Hersheys Cup Series, while he has only had, to my knowledge, one appearance prior to this season in the playoffs. Even though he's not been in the playoffs, a lot of Levi McIntyre's wins have come late in the season. I remember him winning at Lime Rock during the playoffs. He's gotten a lot of late season wins, and so you got to think with that kind of history, is he going to be one of the favorites to look at heading into this season's chase? Reynolds and Baker battling for second. Reynolds needs a win to get himself into the playoffs. Reynolds coming into this race, total of 7 points back from the cut line. Right now, I think he would be in the top 30 in points, but he needs to go to victory lane here to have that last-ditch effort to get into the playoffs. Reynolds' only win in his career came at the dirt track of the Springfield Mile. And this track is a mile in length, it's just not covered with dirt. J Shears in 4th, Dylan Young with a great run there in 5th. Chris Dodd trying to keep himself in the hunt there, he's in 6th. Cittadino 7th, McCloud now up there in 8th. McCloud is a driver that could get into the top 30 in points with a win. He is actually tied in a 3-way tie for 30th with Daniel Gilbert and Benjamin Miles. So if he wins, he would probably be into the playoffs. Maybe pull a James Shelley from the Pizza Next Series race here yesterday. Trent Dunham, another driver that could do that, former champion from Season 5. He's now up in the 9th position. And Trent Dunham's laying down some pretty fast lap times right now, as they were almost 3 wide up here with McCloud, Cittadino, and Chris Dodd. These drivers here, you bet they're battling hard. Why are they battling hard? Because in roughly about 10 laps is when we're going to start that second round of pit stops, and that's what we deem the money stop. Cole Baker's going to move by for position. You see Johnny Gardner in the 7th completing the top 10, and he came into this race overall 9th in the point standings. I think right now with the way he's running, he's going to very easily make his way into the playoffs. So it looks like we could have 2 drivers out of Fitzwater Australia Racing that'll be representing in the chase. Baker, who is running well, has that win in the bank from last week at Watkins Glen, and now Johnny Gardner, looking like he'll make it in via points. A lot of teams with multiple drivers getting into the playoffs this season. You've got Flying Aces Racing. They've got John Art and J Baskinger lined up to make the playoffs. Young Motorsports with Dylan Young, Levi McIntyre, and Cody Smart. You've got Retro Racing Enterprises with Kyle Mathews and Jessica Shelton. As Dylan Young says, all right, you guys want to keep battling? I'm going to go by both of you, and he's bringing James McCloud with him. So now, Dylan Young trying to move to 2nd, McCloud to 3rd. Trent Dunham up here now with Cittadino and Chris Dodd. We got some new players, and now these are going to be the guys that are all going to try and run down Levi McIntyre, probably around the time that that pit stop begins. Look at this, McCloud now going to go to the inside. This is for 2nd place. It's going on almost 2 seconds behind the leader, but it's the best battle on track right now. McCloud now to the point. Dunham into 3rd. Yeah, 2 seconds back behind Levi McIntyre. You can see the gap back to this group. Although if this group could get lined up single file, this track is very much like a super speedway, and they could maybe run down Levi McIntyre for the race lead. You saw how quickly a group of 4 was able to run down a group of 2. Now Now they'll go side by side for second. Trent Dunham to the inside of McCloud. Going to try and clear him by the time they get down to turn 3 here. Looks like he may succeed in doing so. And if he does, Trent Dunham then might start setting his sights on running down the 99 of Levi McIntyre. McCloud's going to cut R.J. Reynolds off there. He'll hold on to third. And as McIntyre leads, we're closing in on pit stops. I got to take another quick break. We'll be right back. Apologies again for that. Talking with my parents because we got a phone company that's here and everything. So, Sean Gallighan in the 44 on pit road, along with some others. Jordan Anderson, I saw Dallas McIntosh, Hartnett, McCrury. So the pit stops are beginning. Right around lap 52, a couple of drivers will probably be able to stretch to lap 54, but this is the money stop, and here comes the race leader, Levi McIntyre, and he's going to have a little bit of a slow entry into pit road here. Came in behind some drivers in the tail end of the lead lap. Contact right there between Charles Sanford and Daniel Gilbert, and that was right in front of the leader, Levi McIntyre. That's not going to be a very fast pit stop for the 99, and that might allow some drivers to close in on him. Trent Dunham in second, stayed out. He's coming to pit road this time. So too is R.J. Reynolds. Joshua Osborne on pit road, and I don't know. Trent and R.J. might have been the last two that stayed out on that round. Everybody else might have already come to pit road at this point. Yeah, it looks like only 3 drivers stayed out an extra lap. Reynolds, Dunham, and Osborne, and Reynolds is already down and away. So R.J. Reynolds trying to get the race lead here possibly. Let's see if he's going to be able to get out ahead of the 99. Comes off of pit road. There's the 99 of McIntyre. Looks like Trent Dunham's going to cycle somewhere around 5th, maybe further back, and now Gardner and Cittadino getting around him. And I do believe R.J. Reynolds is going to cycle as the leader, but Levi McIntyre right behind him. Now remember, if Reynolds wins, he's in the playoffs, and if he's in the playoffs, that might be 2 of the K Shearer Racing Tech cars in the playoffs, because right now Scott Roush would be locked in via where he is in points. McIntyre still side by side there with Zachary Fitzwater, who is a lap down. He'll clear him. Now closes in on the 97. McIntyre's had one of the strongest cars all day. Reynolds has used pit strategy to gain track position. Going to be 4 laps to go here at Hillside, and McIntyre is there. Despite that slower entry into pit road, despite the fact that they had contact between Sanford and Gilbert right in front of him, McIntyre still in the hunt for this win, and he's to the inside of R.J. Reynolds. I'm trying to remember, and I can't, at least to my knowledge, remember Levi McIntyre having a multi-win season in the Hersheys Cup Series. But he has taken the lead. Zachary Fitzwater has gotten around R.J. Reynolds, so there's now a lap machine between the 99 and the 97, and there's 2 laps to go. Gallighan in the 44, just ahead of the Levi McIntyre machine. McIntyre's going to make quick work of him. And Levi McIntyre will see the white flag. 1 more lap to go here at Hillside. McIntyre, I'm pretty certain, has never had a multi-win season. He'll be tied with John Arndt and Kyle Mathews for the #1 seed heading into the playoffs. 2nd win of the year for Levi McIntyre. He takes the checkers at Hillside Raceway. And I noticed finishing, I believe, just ahead of him on the lead lap was the 98 of Seth Cole. Does not look like the performance that team needed to get into the playoffs this year. But McIntyre will be a 2-time winner. He will be tied for the #1 seed when the playoff grid is put together with John R. and Kyle Mathews. And are we looking at the favorite heading into this season's chase for the championship? Gonna have to wait and see. One driver that came in clutch with a good finish that he definitely needed, and that is Keith Batson. Came into this race 16th in the point standings of that playoff grid, and he's going to finish in the top 10, so Keith Batson's going to lock himself up a spot. So now the question is, though, Seth Cole, who displaces him? Because Seth Cole, so we're going to quickly just look down at the bottom of the grid to see where he officially finished, was 39th. All right, let's do a little bit of math here and try and figure it out. K Shearer, he finishes in 22nd. Kyle Keith, he finishes in 27th. So right now, K Shearer would be the driver that would displace the 98. What about some other drivers here? Let's see. Joshua Osborne, I don't think he would take the spot. He finished in 17th. Chris Dodd, he finishes in 12th. He was 30 points behind Batson. How far back was he on Seth Cole? Cole had 385. Chris Dodd had 350, so that would be 35 points back. Dodd finished in 12th, so he would have needed Seth Cole to finish in 47th or worse. Cole finished in 39th. Chris, I think, did lead a lap. I don't think those bonus points are going to help him enough, though, to be able to displace Seth Cole out of the point standings. Ooh, I think he might have just come up short. I think. Holly Davis finished in 11th, but she would have been 39 points back behind Seth Cole. Dylan Poteet, he finished 21st, so he wouldn't have made it. Dougie Shears, he finished in 8th, but he was 41 points behind Seth Cole. And I don't think Dougie led a lap. And Charles Sanford, we saw he had contact on pit road with Daniel Gilbert. He finished down in the, actually finished in 19th. But I don't think that was enough for him to be able to get in either. So let's put it this way. I'm pretty certain Srigley, who managed to finish 16th. Scott Roush, who finished in... Where'd he finish? He was 29th, but he was high enough in points. I think he still would make it in. I think. Johnny Gardner finishing in 4th. I think he made it in. Keith Batson finishing in 9th. I think he made it in. I think the battle is going to come down between K Shearer or Chris Dodd as to who displaced Seth Cole out of the point standings. I'm a little wondering, though, about Scott Roush. How far ahead was he of Keith Batson? Because if Batson passed him in the point standings, then we'd have to check out the gap between Scott Roush and K Shearer. Because if Shearer displaces Roush, then Chris Dodd maybe displaced Seth Cole, or Seth Cole might have still possibly made it in. So let me just do a little bit of math there. So Scott Roush finishes this race in the 29th position. He came into this race ahead of Keith Batson by 25 points. So 29th, and Batson finished 9th. Ooh, I don't think Batson passed him. I don't think he did. So I think Roush might still be okay. So if I'm to just wager a guess based off of the math in my head, and do not take this as gospel, wait until the official points are up, but I do believe your playoff contenders this season are going to be, up at the top, it's going to be Kyle Mathews, John Arndt, and Levi McIntyre. Drivers that will make it in via wins would be J Baskinger, Cody Smart, Dylan Young, Levi McIntyre, J Cittadino, Jessica Shelton, Tim Walsh, Anthony McCrury, I think, still is going to make it in, and Cole Baker as well. Dallas McIntosh needed to finish a lot better than 25th to make it in, so I don't think he's into the playoffs. And then the drivers that would make it in via points, in total, it would be 5 of them, and I believe it would be Joseph Srigley, Scott Roush, Johnny Gardner, Keith Batson, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the other driver, the final driver, is going to be the 80 of K Shearer, just barely making it in by the skin of his teeth. But we're going to have to wait and get the official results to find out if that is absolutely the case. But Levi McIntyre makes a statement here with his second win of the season. Who between him, Kyle Mathews, and John R. do you think's the favorite heading in? Or is it maybe someone that's been consistent this year, like a Joseph Srigley or a Johnny Gardner who hasn't gotten a win? Are they the favorite heading into Las Vegas? Gonna have to wait and see. That's where we're heading for our start for the playoffs for Trucks, Pizza Hut X Series, and Hersheys Cup Series action, the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Thank you all for tuning in to today's race. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give us a video, like, subscribe to become a part of the crew today. We have shown you your full finishing results. We'll show them to you one more time here. There you go. Everyone finished the race, 39 on the lead lap, 3 a lap down. And Levi McIntyre is the one who wins. These are your rookie point standings. These are your overall point standings. Drivers that are highlighted in yellow are the drivers that have made it into the chase. And then you will see your reformatted playoff grid for the 16 drivers that will be battling for 10 races in this season's chase for the championship. We'll see you guys at Las Vegas as the playoff begins for the 3 top-tier series. Till then, I've been Seth Cole, and you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best.